Welcome to Awakening Mindfulness at Work, a conversation that matters. I'm Pierre Coant.
And I'm Sarah Killeen. We are bringing to you conversations and practices to cultivate presence, calm, and balance in the workplace.
So let's begin right here, right now.
Welcome everyone to this new episode, new week. Hi Pierre, lovely seeing you.
Hello.
Hello. Before we dive into today's topic, maybe just taking a deep breath. Just sometimes we go through our entire days without even noticing we're breathing, right? So a few really deep breaths and feeling the body breathing, just feeling the body breathing. Resetting, hitting reset. All right, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, very nice transition. Just one or two deep breath can be a nice transition. So today we're going to talk about thoughts. Those things that happen in the mind and they keep happening time after time after time. And specifically, I'd like to talk about thoughts that come up often, and not only during meditation, but throughout our day and even beyond the day. And I'd like to focus specifically on the difficult ones, the ones that have, worrying, anxiety, maybe even self-doubt, judgment, and so on. So in our mindfulness practice, like the mindfulness of thoughts meditation, our approach is to notice the thought, label it like something like planning, or it's a judging thought, or it's a worrying thought. And then instead of trying to fix it or follow it, get entangled in it, we kind of let it pass and return to the present moment, usually the breath, or it could be maybe a sensation in the body, or whatever our practice is at the moment. However, not all thoughts are that easy to let go of. Some are very sticky. They repeat themselves, they circle back again and again. So these recurring thoughts might come from deeper beliefs about ourselves. Sometimes they show up in forms like, oh, I'm always messing this up, or oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not good at this, or other people are doing better. So we come up with all these comparing thoughts. So today, I'd like to offer two additional ways beyond our mindfulness of thoughts practice, and invite everyone to consider them and experiment with them. Then I'm very curious what Sarah would say about these, or would add to these as we get into the conversation. So the first approach I'm going to suggest is to have a dialogue with the thought. So let's say this thought is, oh, you did it again. So maybe, and that could be referring to anything. It could be, breaking a promise to yourself about your diet, or your sleep, or your, who knows, alcohol consumption, or how you showed up in a conversation. So having a dialogue with this thought could mean asking, what exactly did I do again? Is that really true? Were there times where I didn't do this, where I did things differently? Am I acknowledging those times? What would a more balanced voice say? Can I still be kind to myself and restart? So this is the dialogue, which is about being more open, more curious, shifting the dynamic from judgment to more of an understanding type dynamic, and potentially reframing that thought, or that belief behind that thought, into something that's more realistic and more productive. So this is the first approach. So it's the dialogue approach. So dialogue, talking back, dialoguing with that thought. The other approach is to actually take action. I also call this be your own scientist. So this step would be, moving from the thinking and whatever else goes into the mind into actually doing something. So this could be doing something to test the validity of this thought. Could be something small, like a little safe experiment. Could I try something to check in to get some real data? For example, if the thought is, oh, I always mess things up, how about if I take a small task that I can do carefully and with attention and shows me that I don't actually always mess things up. And it could be as simple as following through a commitment today, or maybe taking that mindful break that I keep postponing and not taking it, or whatever else it might be. So in summary, Sarah, I have kind of I we put it into like three steps. So the first step is the mindfulness step, which is noticing, labeling, bringing kindness to the equation. And then the second step is the cognitive step, having a dialogue with that thought, questioning, being curious, checking in. Is it true? Is it valid? Can I reframe it into something more interesting and productive? And then the third is the action step. Can I take some small, wise action and observe what happens? So, yeah.
So much to say. Thank you for the very practical steps, and I think I have four little different avenues coming up in my mind, avenues of thoughts. Um, so let's see what I'll start with. I think I'm always reminded to, author Michael Neal, he's an author and coach, and I remember once he said, will you entertain your thoughts or let your thoughts entertain you? As in, will you keep feeding your thoughts, or will you also sometimes just kind of laugh at them a little bit and, bring some lightness to whatever is happening in your mind? And I think that's something that you do, that you referred to as well. And, this overlap between mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy. And actually, I read a book about that from, I think it's Seth Gillihan. And the book is called Mindful Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, A Simple Path to Healing, Hope, and Peace. And he's explaining exactly that. How do you bring mindfulness and psychotherapies like CBT together by, naming difficult thoughts, having mindfulness there, and then making a choice. Do you choose to feed the thought? Do you choose to put some fuel into it? Or do you choose to put your attention somewhere else, like the present, so that becomes your reality? I really like, and it's exactly what you mentioned as well, is it's not one approach or the other. And they really both have a very important role to play, is noticing and recognizing what's happening, not trying to minimize or to push away the thoughts that are here, because they're here, right? And being in power, having this action that one can take. Do I stay on the thought, or do I put my attention? Do I dispute it? Do I come up with something a little bit better? Do I put my attention somewhere else so that becomes my reality? So I really like those two approaches together. I think they're very, very powerful. And it also reminds us that the goal with mindfulness, it's not to have a mind free of thoughts, right? No thought, getting rid of thoughts. That's never going to happen. It's about having a mind free from thoughts, not being slaves to that, the storytelling mind. And that's this little, that's where the gap is, that gap where responsibility comes in, this action, this power to choose what to do with our thoughts. um, and the last thing I would mention there is something that really surprised me, and I think is very important to think about once in a while, and that's coming from neuroplasticity. And psychologist and author Rick Hanson actually is writing a lot about that, is how the brain takes the shape of what the mind rests upon. If we very often rest the mind on self-criticism, or being angry about other people, very frustrated, our brain will gradually take the shape of that worse mood, less resilience, worse mood, getting triggered and upset really easily. Um, and that has actually happened. It's been proven scientifically. That's, with neuroplasticity. If on the other side we try to rest our mind on our brain, on our mind more, on more wholesome qualities like, joy and kindness, and trying to look at beautiful things around us, the flowers that are blooming, the dogs that are playing, gradually the brain will take that shape of a greater resilience, better mood, feeling more resourceful to take on whatever life is throwing at us, and we really build that up, and we really have an influence on how then we will feel and think and behave 10 years from now on. So yeah, all that to say, all that to say, all those are truths that are not mutually exclusive. That making space for whatever is present right now, welcoming it, you know, giving space to the thought, and then cutting the road as well, like they say in Zen Buddhism. If this thought is not helping you, if it's not serving you, can you cut the mind road? Can you cut the road? That's a dead end. We're stopping there, and you know, try to think about something that's serving you a little bit better. And
Yeah,
it's easier
yeah.
said than done. Again, it's so easy to say that when you're not in the situation, and then sometimes when it's just so charged and it's so heavy and it's so powerful, it takes a lot of power to actually do everything we said
Mm,
until now, which
mm,
is why practice is important. Practice,
yeah.
practice, practice. And I know you can talk a lot about that. Tiny steps
Yeah,
at a
no,
time.
this is so I think you brought up many really interesting aspects of this topic. And one of them, I think you mentioned that specifically, Sarah, which is we don't have control over our thoughts and they're never going to stop. This is part of how our brain functions, and that's what's going to continue to do. So we don't have control over our thoughts, but we can influence our thoughts. So it depends. It depends what we listen to, what kind of input we consume, what kind of conversations we engage in, what kind of communities we engage in. So if we orient ourselves towards the positivity, the growth, the learning, getting deeper into our mindfulness journey, that's gonna influence what kind of thoughts come up. And so this is how we influence thoughts. And I think that's such a beautiful way to engage into this process
Mm.
of influencing thoughts.
Yeah, and this is not bypassing, this is this concept of spiritual bypassing, or, saying just be happy all the time, be cheerful all the time. It's not about faking. It's not about, fake it until you make it. Um, it's about choosing, kind of claiming back that power to choose where your attention is resting on, where
Mm,
you want to put your
mm,
attention on. And yes, the attention will go somewhere else, and that's not really up to you. But then when you catch it, you can choose to bring it back to where you want it to be, again and again and again and again. And that's actually extremely empowering to know you can do that. We can feel, I think, sometimes a little bit powerless about thoughts. Oh, this thought is coming to my mind, it's coming out of nowhere. Why am I even thinking that? It can feel very powerless sometimes, especially when thoughts, it's harsh thoughts. It's especially with the self-critic, um, thoughts can be really painful actually, to have just thoughts come into our mind and we're not really in power. We haven't chosen them. And knowing that we do have that power to choose what to do with them, it is extremely empowering. So well, yeah, that's what we're trying to practice with mindfulness of thoughts, right? Trying to build up that capacity to choose what we put our attention on. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's starting, 2 minutes at a time, and 5 minutes, and 10 and 15, and that's what the practice is about. Practice is not about getting rid of thoughts. The thoughts will come up again and again and again out of nowhere. It's about, yeah, choosing what to do with them, and choosing and being able to direct our attention, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the practice. Yeah, something I say often. There are no shortcuts. There are no hacks. There are no quick fixes. There's only practice, time after time after
Yeah.
time.
And it's a
Yeah.
bit like it's like habit formation. I remember reading that in Atomic Habits, in the book by James, and it really stuck with me when he was saying every time you behave in a certain way or you make a decision, it's like voting for that behavior or that
Mm,
action. and
mm,
and the more you vote, the more momentum it has, and the more it turns into a habit and something you do unconsciously then,
yeah.
so I like to think about that, every time you catch yourself in a thought that is unwholesome, that is not kind, or that is not serving you, and you catch yourself and you bring yourself back either into present, the body, whatever is happening around you, or another thought or something that gladdens the mind and the heart. This is like voting for those states of mind rather than the one that you departed from. So it's one more vote in that direction, and it's walking in that direction. Yeah. What a great
Voting.
topic.
It's a good one. Yeah, yeah. I like that concept. Like you're voting for that thought, and you can choose to vote for another thought.
Exactly. It's like a
Yeah,
up or down, in Reddit I think it's on Reddit when you can choose
yeah.
to, up, this thought comes up and this thought goes down.
Okay,
Yeah,
that could be a nice app, Sarah. Maybe we should think
it
about
could.
that.
Another episode.
So, as a final thought related to thoughts, how about an invitation to notice today, whenever you hear this episode, or maybe even the next day or so, what thoughts are swirling around in your mind that may be hindering you in some way? Um, and is there an opportunity to try those three approaches we talked about? One of them, all of them, whatever works, and just see what happens. So, kind of an invitation to be your own scientist and to take that proactive step of trying things out and seeing for yourself and getting real data. So that would be my closing comment. Anything you would like to add, Sarah?
No, let's be scientists.
Okay. All right. See you everyone in the next episode.
Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.